May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest. But before I go into that, I want to say something. I erroneously thought that when I was recording, if I hit the mute button, that it wouldn't be recorded. So I recently have started hitting the mute button when I coughed. And I have coughed a lot since, mainly I coughed a lot in, mid-June through August. I had bronchitis. But I cough now, and I coughed before that, It did mute the person I'm talking with, but it didn't mute the recording, which isn't fair. But so I've got these podcasts, I don't know how many, I don't know where it is, that have got coughs in it. Yeah. Before I got that bright idea, I was marking them minute and second and trying to go find them. And I usually would, I think. Now I'm just going to say, excuse me, because see, the thing is, I transcribe these with AI, and it so far I don't have an AI that says cough. I've seen it, but maybe it was on another one I tried as a test that I had to pay for, and it was too much. But it just let me know sort of what was happening there. And so anyway, there probably is some artificial intelligent transcriber that says cough. Now, if there isn't, there will be one in the future, and it has to also be affordable. So we'll see. Anyway, my apologies. Hey, if you hear a cough in any of them, note the time and shoot me an email at dchad@cuke.com. That'd be very nice of you. Or any other comments you want to make. Or your life story. So, anyway, all right. Today we have a guest, J.J. Wilson. And she is a return guest. Now, I did a podcast with her a few years ago. And you should go hear it, too, if you haven't heard it. JJ is, she's great. She wasn't really a Zen student, but she knew Shunryu Suzuki really well. She came to Zen Center in 1961 with her husband, Phillip Wilson, who was a very close, very tight disciple of Shunryu Suzuki, who Suzuki sent to Japan. Philip went in 1964 to Japan and was at AHE not quite a year. And then he went to, he went to Kamakura. But anyway, and he was at Tassajara at the first and everything. And she talks about him some here. And we talk about him plenty. And other things. And we talk about Virginia Woolf. Because when JJ was at Zen Center there in the early 60s, she was working on her PhD thesis on Virginia Woolf. And she went on to become, I'm sure, the leading authority on Virginia Woolf. And Virginia Woolf wasn't big back then. And so she also started the Women's Studies program at Sonoma State University. And so she's sort of a matriarch of feminist studies and Virginia Woolf studies. And she's really delightful to talk with. So that's enough, huh? Let's give her a call after we've had our pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell or end the meditation or whatever. And we'll give J.J. Wilson a call.
Hello, David.
Hi, J.J. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you great, yeah.
Oh.
I didn't know you had to have a mic to talk on the phone.
Well, I don't. I could call you on my iPhone, but it's much better. And also, I want to record this because you might say some historically important things. And I have
Don't count on it. Don't count on it.
Oh, yeah. I have some questions for you. So how was, I think that was good last night that it didn't work because you had things to do. You went moon viewing.
I did. And oh my gosh, you saw it too, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, we've got the moon here too. That's something we have in common with you.
Well, it was, I thought, remarkable, like cheddar cheese or something. Here, the color was so different than moons usually are. Yeah, good gracious. I loved it. Yeah, I'm glad I got to see it. I felt privileged. Sometimes here it's so foggy, you may remember, that these things go unnoticed, these wonderful star changes and everything, and I feel so disappointed. But this was great. So, yes, thank you. I'm glad we didn't get to talk yesterday, too. I agree.
Yeah.
Moon, you're pretty good, but Moon was better.
Yeah. Hey, you know what I said about the moon here? A friend of mine was with his Japanese wife. They live mainly in Japan, but some in Seattle. And they were in some place like Idaho, and the waitress asked Kyoko, his wife, if you could see the moon from Japan.
Well, I was almost as silly, yeah. we think we own it, yeah, right. That's silly.
Yeah. Well, you just sound wonderful. Yeah, that's so good to hear your voice. So, what are you up to these days?
Let's see. As little as I can possibly manage. I find, David, and this is not very interesting for your podcast, I'm sure, but I'm now 87 years old, and I feel like I've seen everything already, seen it all. I don't go to events anymore. I went to a play that a friend put on Woody Guthrie, and I love Woody Guthrie. I love my friend, and I just wished I didn't want to spend 3 hours sitting in one place, listening to stuff which I knew already or something. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
I used to go to everything. When I retired, I said yes to everything. And I realized that actually later I don't remember it all that well. It was a spectacle of some sort, and it kind of felt good going down, but then later it doesn't stay with me in a particularly positive way.
Yeah.
And so that's a change in me, and I I like my own company. I guess I enjoy my own company. But they're just, time seems to be zipping by so rapidly that I want to keep kind of trying to slow it down, kind of trying to put the brake on a little bit and just, enjoy the moment or whatever the cliche is. But that doesn't really describe what I'm experiencing. So I find aging very fascinating, I guess is what I'm saying. And many changes, not just in the body, but in the whole way of experiencing life. And I hadn't really expected that. I thought I would be, my own JJ self, the usual self, all to the end. But I'm not. I'm a different JJ now, I tell you the truth.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I hear you, and I understand, and I'm pretty close in how I feel to that.
I'll be darned. I'm amazed. I don't meet many people in California who recognize that, as you seem to be, except even they don't accept it. They say, oh, but make an exception for my event. Oh, well, anyway, yeah, I still appreciate people individually. And, David, I have heard a wonderful... Do you have time for me to tell you? It's not very long.
I have nothing but time until I tell you. Right now, it's about 10:06 in the morning. I have a 2:15 dental appointment, and I can walk there in about 20 minutes.
Well, it's not that long a story, but it involves seeing someone whom I used to know as a child. His mother was in the first class I ever TA'd for at Berkeley. That was a long time ago.
Wow.
And so we stayed in touch, mostly thanks to her, and she came to SSU and got, actually, Sonoma State, where I taught. She got 2 masters here. And while she was doing that, her son would play over at this house quite a bit. And he remembered it, even though he'd gone to live in Nicaragua, where he is married and has 2 kids.
Mm.
He came back for a visit to visit his mother, who's not been well. He quarantined. He did all the right things. And then he met his mother, and she said, what would you like to do? And he said, I want to go to JJ's house. So over he came last Sunday with his wife and 2 kids. And he went into this whole nostalgic, he saw the porch railings he used to swing on, and now he's 6'6", so he can't do it anymore, And his kids were happily doing it, and he said the house smelled the same. He was in a full ecstasy of memory as a child, and his wife and I began to talk as best we could. She's Nicaraguan, so her English is sort of good about, I would like a cup of coffee, but not too good, to talk about the PhD she's working on now, which is about bees. She has 9 different kinds of bees and honey from them, and works with that and is writing about that and speaking about that everywhere. Bees are apparently a very hot topic right now.
Oh, yeah.
But then she told me another story, and her husband, Niels, was like subtitling it for me. She said that she'd lived in Cuba for several years, and when she got ready to go back to Nicaragua, she had many suitcases full of books. And the customs officials in Cuba were not, they didn't approve of this. They didn't want to okay her taking all these books away. And so she she went away, came back in about a half an hour, empty suitcases. They said, what did you do with all those books? What she had done is gone to the queue of people waiting in line for her flight to Nicaragua and asked each person about to get on the plane, if they would take a couple of her books on the plane with them.
That's funny. That's really good.
Was that smart?
Yeah, that is
I would have
smart.
taken no for an answer.
Yeah.
A good German or something. Isn't that the most darling solution to a problem?
Wow. That's
I know.
pretty good.
I felt that too. I was just so much so that I'm taking up some of the time when I'm supposed to be talking about myself to tell her story. But I just thought it was so lovely.
That is good. That is good. Now, her son was there being nostalgic about your place. I can see your place. You live in Sonoma, right?
In the county of Sonoma, not in the town.
Yeah, you're out there in the country. I can see a row of pretty tall trees.
That's right. Which are now huge redwoods. Yeah. Philip put them in. It's the Phillip Wilson Memorial Forest because he put them in as little saplings,
Oh, my God.
And now they keep everybody else in the world has a heat wave. Not here. We're just so cool. I've got a coat on right now, a jacket. Yeah. Even though it's just amazing what a difference ecosystem it makes. And now the house is a library called the Sitting Room Library, and it's open 3 days a week. And I swear, I think people come as much for the cool as they do for the books.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Now, Katrinka, my beloved wife, she remembers you very well. I had to remind her. Oh, and she said, "Oh, yeah, I loved her. I loved her place too." And she said, "She's the one who founded the women's studies at Sonoma State University."
Yes, I did, with a lot of help from the rest of the world, of course, but yes.
Yeah.
I get a lot of credit for it and just got interviewed by Bancroft, at Berkeley.
Yeah.
Which was a very big deal. They came with cameras and God only knows what all. They have videos, and then they printed it up. And they did, by the way, this is an interesting point from the archival point of view, which I know is your interest too, that they sent me the transcript of everything that had been said, and I had a month to make any changes I needed. And then I sent it back to them, and after that, I can no longer touch it. It's theirs.
Well, that's really nice of them. That's good. That's good. I just had that happen, too. I just got interviewed, and the guy, he doesn't post audio. He doesn't like audio. He sent me the transcript. He transcribed the whole thing. And he said, change it any way you want. You can rewrite the whole thing. Basically, I want what you have to say. And that was good. I appreciated that. Incidentally, I recorded it while we were doing it too. And I ran the audio through, artificial intelligence, transcriber. And I sent him the transcription because he just listens to it and types it. But, it needs a lot of correcting, and it had to separate the host and guest. But, anyway, that's nice of them. That's nice.
It's funny, we both become history, David.
Yeah.
Who would have believed it? In those early carefree days when we were hanging out on Bush Street or whatever. Yeah, God.
Yeah, I remember. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You were at Zen. You were at Zen Center at the early Sokoji with your husband. You were married then, right? Phillip Wilson.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never have been there if I hadn't been married. I didn't have any, Zen quest in me.
Yeah,
but it
no.
was just by marriage. Yeah.
I know that. And I remember you were working, maybe you were working on it even when I was there. Because I do remember you, but you were there much earlier. Like, you were around there Philip was around there 5 years before I was. I don't know when you came in.
I remember Bill Kwong and, very early days coming and being a house husband because Laura Kwong was such a powerhouse in business. And she said, "What are you doing going to Zen Center?" He lived very nearby. And he explained to her how important it was. And she said, "Well, I'd like to try it too." And he said, "Wonderful." They set up a schedule. He set up a schedule in his mind that he would babysit on Tuesdays. She would come to Zen Center on Tuesdays. He would go on Wednesdays. He had it all set up. She came. She sat in Zazen, and then she went back to the house. And he said, "Well, now, isn't that great? Remember now, you'll be going on Thursday." And she said, "What for?" And he said, "Well, to practice." And she said, "Well, once was enough."
Oh, that's good.
She'd gotten enlightenment in one fell swoop. Yeah. She couldn't imagine why you would need to do it more than once.
Well,
she later changed her tune on that, by golly, but that was adorable. Yeah, that's one of the early phases. Yeah.
Yeah, she got sort of serious about it, and they had, I don't know how many kids they had then, but they ended up having 4 boys, right?
Yeah, they had 2, I think, at that point. And one of them explained to Bill that when he grew up, he was going to marry Laura.
That's funny.
I thought that was, Freud acted out in real life.
Suzuki Roshi did the same thing with her that he did with you. At some point, he told her, you're a mother. You've got these kids. You don't have to push yourself to come here all the time. That's your number one priority. And that just took a big pressure,
load off of her. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, big load off of her. Because, people would come there and some of them would get so, there was a tendency to get so serious and intense and more so than he was really encouraging, or in a way he wasn't encouraging. And I remember with you, he said, "You should go back and work on your thesis."
Right. The time when he was exactly right. I was trying to escape the damn thesis. But that's not the reason to come do Zazen. Go back to your work, he said. Yeah, he definitely sent me back. Yeah. And I know you have the story about when Philip called.
No. Don't think I have anything. Just pretend you've never talked to me before.
That's probably a good procedure because there's bound to be difference in the telling. But Philip was calling down through the yellow pages to every church, and most of the churches said, "Oh, certainly, sir. We can make an appointment with the pastor for you next Tuesday at 3:00. Well, that was not what Philip wanted, an appointment. He needed it right away. And when he got a hold of Reverend Suzuki on the phone, Reverend Suzuki, who had just arrived, days before from Japan, and whose English was quite basic, Philip would talk, and Reverend Suzuki would just say, "Please come. Please come."
Uh-huh.
And that's what Philip wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And so that's why he came to Bush Street, the temple there.
Now, what year did you and Philip get together?
Oh, he was the first man I met at Stanford.
What
first
year?
Person I met on campus. When did I go to Stanford? 53. It must have been 1953.
Oh my gosh! Oh wow!
Yeah, history. Yeah.
Wow, that is something. And you remember Tony? Tony became the most famous drug lawyer in America. He lived in Bolinas. He was a neighbor of mine.
Oh, I know Tony, but his last name, that's not his, I remember him.
Tony Serra.
Tony was a good friend of Philip's, yeah. One time, who went to trial with that monkey on him because the monkey had gotten attached to him. Thought he was his mama, and he had to carry the monkey under his jacket into the court.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
It was adorable. And one time he and Philip spent the whole day redesigning the map of the USA. It seemed to them quite silly to have all those different sizes of states. And so they got into it. They were so intent on it. Gosh, I was back from working at where I was, to Potrero Hill, where we were living, to find the over map of the United States, redrawing it vigorously so that it was all the same sources. It was quite a.
Wow.
He was smart, Tony Serra. Yeah, I'm speaking of him in the past, but I don't. He may still be alive. I hope he is. Yeah.
I think I might know if he wasn't, because it would be in the news.
Would be a big obituary, right? Yeah.
You were talking about Potrero Hill. I didn't.
Yeah. Well, we lived on Potrero Hill at 400 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
All the streets in Potrero were named after the states, and that was a very funny address for me because I had lived in Washington, D.C., where 400 Pennsylvania Avenue is the address of the White House. So people thought it was great that we lived there at Mimi Orr's place. And she was quite a fascinating figure. And I actually rented from her out here in Sonoma County, too, before I bought this house. But anyway, yes, Tony Serra and Philip they had lots of time together, and they used it very well to redesign the map. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Now, to some people, Tony Serra, back then, in the football days, Tony Serra was the quarterback for, I believe, for the Stanford football team. He's very tall.
And Philip was the guard.
Right, he was the right guard.
Yeah,
and he was well known as somebody you couldn't get through. There was even talk of him being All-American. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that.
He was asked. Yeah, he was invited. That's right. And he would have hurt himself, and he did. He had CTE. No
What's
getting
that?
around it. Well, it's the awful thing you get from concussions, from from playing football and hitting people too hard and not having the right helmets and everything. And it's happened. Almost all the football players got it, and I didn't recognize. We didn't. It's just become defined and as a disease, and the football teams have had to pay huge sums to their damaged players. And I did. That is really. Philip was always eccentric, but that CTE is what got him in the end.
That is very interesting. That is. I never thought of that. But
I didn't at the time, but later it's so clear. He was like a textbook case of it, really. The paranoia and the extremes of mood and lots of other things that just exactly what they describe. Now,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I can't remember what CTE stands for, but I'm horrible about initials. But that, if you look it up, you'll see the symptoms and you'll see Philip's last decades.
Wow. There was a really good movie on it with Denzel Washington playing this African doctor who really sort of brought it to light in America through, he's going up against a multi-billion-dollar professional football.
Yeah, right. You denied.
Yeah. It's chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Thank you. Yeah, no wonder I can't remember it. What a frightful word. Oh.
Yeah, it's a progressive and fatal brain disease associated with repeated traumatic brain injuries.
I would never let any child of mine play football ever. If I don't know how they're still doing it. I think it's shocking.
No, I agree. It's terrible. It's worse. I wrote a thing on being in Australia and watching soccer and Australian rules football. Rugby, I'm worried about, but I said American football is the most violent. And so definitely rugby. What they do, I don't know. It might do the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Well,
they now in training they don't do contact like that. They've pedaled back to try to make it less, to diminish the symptoms, because it's apparently the repeated, concussion after concussion after concussion that causes the real problem. And they're also much better about recognizing it and treating it right away than they used to be. In other words, there has been some mitigation, but so far I don't think they've really solved it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I can't even look at it without feeling it in my head.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I never thought of this with Philip, because I certainly experienced troubling behavior from him many times. And I talked to him about it, and he would just call me a liar. I never did that, And but then he'd come back
Which is
later.
One of the symptoms, that denial, and then he'd come back later and say, "I did, yeah."
Or he'd say, "Did I really do that? Oh my God." Yeah, all right, that's very interesting. Incidentally, I told my son, Clay, who was doing very good, he really liked football when he was a little kid, right? And he liked, just like Philip, he liked being on the offensive line. And I said to Clay, I played football in elementary school, and ours was 1 through 6. And when I went to junior high school, the first day I had my football equipment and I brought it with me to go out for the team. And I looked at all these big boys coming from the other schools, and I turned around and walked away. I said, nope.
Brilliant, David. Good. You saved yourself right at that turnaround. Good for you.
Right. So I said to him, I said, it's okay for you to play now, but you should quit when you get in the 6th grade or before you get in
and
the 7th
actually, what they say, though, is that it's much harder on the kids, on the little ones.
Yeah.
The young ones. Yeah. So that was wrong advice, but because the kids don't have the strong a brain structure. I mean, it's not as formed, and the skull is not as hard, and all that. So I did just read a long thing about how they didn't do it anymore with kids. Yeah, I hope, because it is progressive. It is so scary. Let's go to the comic for a minute, David. The comic was that the only time Philip got written up in the Chronicle was when he was running down the field with his mouth wide open, of course, and a fly flew into his throat and choked him so much, and he was so miserable. And everybody thought that was the funniest thing. It was fortunately just in practice, not in a game. But it was written up in the Chronicle. I don't know if it was, in those papers I sent to you. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Wow.
Isn't that silly?
Yeah, that's something. Well, there's estimates of how many insects, I guess it would be, we take in a year. And, there's an average. It might be around a pound a year, but it might not.
Good gracious.
It might not be that much.
I think it was that it got caught in his air pipe that was so.
Oh yeah.
Distressing.
Yeah.
Not that, yeah. I think we ate grasshoppers together somewhere. I remember we were given delicious fried grasshoppers, so we weren't against eating them once they were, not caught in our throats.
Yeah, well, I've eaten in Thailand. I've eaten grasshoppers, stinging scorpions, centipede.
Wow.
I've eaten worms, and
wow.
ants are common. But really, when it gets down to it, was just trying it out. Is that they have what's it called? Chitin is in their exoskeleton. By the time you're eating it, all you're doing is chewing on chitin, and that's the same thing mushrooms are made out of, or one of the primary ingredients. And it's not really good to eat. Well, if it's been cooked, it's all right. But it's just a novelty.
Yeah.
All right. So
I think it's part of a more regular diet in certain cultures, but not ours.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
God knows in California they're eating about everything these days. But mushrooms, some of them are a little scary. So.
Well, yeah, but it's not because of the chitin.
Not because of the chitin. I got it. Okay, yeah.
My older son is really an expert on mushrooms. He's an amateur mycologist, but has done, he's been involved with the most famous people in the world working with mushrooms. And he says, it's very easy to know what's poisonous and what's not. And, he was thinking of doing a book on that would be like mushroom identification, just very basic for the layperson. But people make mistakes. I remember when Cobuncino first came to Tassajara, we were out, I was driving him back into Tassajara from the city, and he stopped and picked all these mushrooms. And I was terrified. And then he goes and he cooks them up, and I just envisioned a Zendo full of dead bodies. But we lived.
Oh, my goodness. He recognized him, I guess, as harmless, I hope.
Yeah. Suzuki
God,
did the
you
same
remind me
thing.
of that drive into Tassajara. That was the scariest drive.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's frightened many people. Yeah, I've been in and out of there 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And I got in some of my more sophomoric days in my 20s. I would set the speed limit record. I mean, the speed record for coming in and out. I don't even like to remember it. I don't like to.
Don't. Let's not even think about it.
Yeah, I shouldn't have brought it up. But Suzuki would. I remember him stopping and picking ferns to cook.
Yes, and they were yummy. At a certain point, he taught me how to do that. You have to catch them. If you catch them too late, they will poison you.
Is that right?
But if you catch them, you have to catch them right at when they just curl. He explained that to me. I've forgotten all about that. Bless his heart. But I thought they were yummy, and I've eaten them in Florida, and at a restaurant, and they were, delicious and perfectly safe. But I've always been too scared to try, to catch them myself at the right moment. I'm not sure enough of my eye, I guess, my judgment.
Yeah, I understand that. So, hey, there we are. You're working on your thesis, and your thesis, if I remember correctly, was on Virginia Woolf.
That's right.
And
the second one only to be written, in the United States at the time. She was not much read. Yeah.
Well, you became a sort of recognized authority on Virginia Woolf, wouldn't you say?
Apparently so. Yeah. Well, we have here at the sitting room library what we call the Woolf Wall, which is this wonderful bookshelf full of, it has 3 shelves of books written by Virginia Woolf and then 13 written about her. So much, I've lived long enough to see, I know my beloved Jerome said, I think now we're overdoing it with Woolf. We underdid it at the beginning and then overdid it. But she is still, there's just been started a Virginia Woolf Society in Turkey, for heaven's sake.
Oh, my gosh.
And I know. And our curator here of the Woolf stuff, wonderful Joanne Borey, went to Cambridge to a class. She thought she'd meet a lot of English people, but there were 2 Japanese, 4 Italians, 2 Koreans. There were people from all over the world, and they must be reading her, or maybe they know English well enough to read her in English, or they're reading her in translation. Can you imagine? She's hard enough in English.
Well, now they might be reading her in English. Look, people, I've spent a lot of time
that's right.
in Asia, and a lot of people read English and don't speak it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, that's true. I can do that with too, actually, yeah. That's what they're doing then. But anyway, isn't it fun that she's gone so international? My gosh. So there was a story I was going to tell. What was it? Oh, just that it wasn't a very good story. Anyway, the curator ran my name through some, electronic thing, along with Virginia Woolf's, and many sources came up. I was startled to see what she found. We've all just become history. It's lovely. We were so lucky to know Reverend Suzuki in person. People just come want to touch me because I knew Reverend Suzuki.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you must get that too, or you would here for sure. Yeah.
I just did a podcast with a fella, and I said, I've gotten a lot of undeserved status because of that.
That's what I felt, undeserved status. Maybe that's the only kind we get. Something that bugs me is that the word notorious is now used positively. You are notoriety, that it means like celebrity with no negative. We used to save it for mafia bosses or something.
There is a tendency in language, at least in English, for words to come to mean their opposite. It's not unique. That's very interesting, though. I didn't know about Notorious.
You watch it. Oh, my God, it's awful,
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of that you can see in modern language. especially a lot of language has changed through youth, and you especially see that coming out in the way the young people are. What catches on with them. The one that really killed me, bad I can understand, but sick, why? Why? Why did that?
I think what we thought we were cool to say cool,
Yeah.
Remember cool? People are still using cool. I know.
Cool,
even the young.
has hung on. It's from the 30s. It
Really? I didn't know that. I thought it was 60s. Oh.
No, it goes way back.
Okay. Okay. And probably most of them start with black people, and then we adopt them.
That's right. Cool started, one thing I read, it started with black jazz musicians describing how they felt when they took heroin.
Wow.
But that's one point. The word is so catchy and works so well. In Indonesian, keren, K-E-R-E-N, is cool. And it also can be, I'm not sure if keren can be used. Sejuk means cool, and it can be used both ways. Actually, I don't know if keren can mean cool temperature-wise, but and there are some words I've noticed in Indonesians that have the double meanings. I guess they picked it up from English or something that English has.
I think it's human. I think it's some human need to contradict oneself, to undermine the very thing you're saying. I think it's because you're not sure or whatever. You want to cover it with. The word that irritates me now is fun. People say it's been fun, and I can't figure out what exactly fun means. It just seems like a word they use to describe a more complicated experience with a very simple and untelling word, but you hear it a lot. I mean, perfectly serious people talk about having fun, and I wonder, what does fun really mean to people? Is it a certain scratching of an itch, or what is it, I'm trying to. I read a wonderful novel by Swift. I forget her first name. She's Egyptian, and she talks. Her English is excellent. She writes about the Arab word for the Arab people have 13 words for love, and it's utterly fascinating. It's words like. There's a different word if you love somebody and they don't love you back. There's a different word for somebody who loved you and stopped. There's a different word line you feel sorry for. I mean, there are these nuances and innuendos. And we use the simple-minded word love to cover everything. Love, love and hate. We use it all the time, and they're not. Other languages have much more elaborate. It's sort of like that thing about Eskimo snow that they always say. They have more words for snow because you see the need for differentiation in the terms, and I think that's wonderful. I'm kind of aware of I know Shakespeare really used English beautifully and all that, but I'm beginning to feel its lack, especially in the 60 or so words that people use in general conversation. God.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a tendency in the development of language, I read, for it to simplify. Isn't that interesting? I remember in studying anthropology, it talked about, but I can't believe that. I mean, it's just hard to believe. Incidentally, I read an article on the Eskimo, how many Eskimo words for snow and all that, and that's been greatly exaggerated.
I understand. Yeah, I read that same article, but it doesn't stop me from using it as an example.
Yeah. I go over things people wrote. I can't get out of it sometimes. And one thing I find is people using, examples, like that. Or, well, like one person recently said that climate change was like putting a frog in. If you put a frog into boiling water, they'll jump right out. But if you put them into cool water and heat it, they will stay there. Well, that's a wives' tale. That's not true. And anything like that.
It's become a metaphor, really, for something. Uh-huh.
If I'm working on
By the
things,
way, I don't approve of old wives' tales being used to discount. That's a misogynistic, a little bit around, a little patriarchal around.
Oh, you're right.
Old wives' tale, both age and wives, right? It's ageist and anti-women. So I have to call you on that.
Oh my God! Let's see. What should
We've got to find
No, it's an
another way of
urban myth.
saying it.
Let's just say urban myth.
Yeah, urban myth. Good. Use urban myth. Yeah. So far, no one's.
and that's just anti-city, which nobody will call me on. But
which
actually,
nobody will call you on. Everybody agrees, right?
Yeah, right. But really, the city is no more the source of it than the country.
If vice versa, I think.
Right,
yeah, probably.
Right.
Amazing.
Thanks for pointing that out. I
did have to call you on that one. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell Katrinka that. I won't forget that.
Well, please, my regards to both of you all, that you even remember the house. And I'm sitting looking at it kind of laughing because during the COVID close down, we renovated like crazy here, and it looks so different.
Oh.
And the kitchen, too, has been beautifully renovated. So it would surprise you now, and I think please you, at the way it has changed.
That's very interesting. Well, I haven't been back to America in 10 years.
You're not likely to come to see 2025 Curtis Drive, I know.
No, I think we would definitely, if we go back, she goes back, but if we go back together, which I will be against, she'll be dragging me, we'll drop by.
That would be great.
We don't drive vehicles here,
I loved it when you said you were walking to the dentist. Yeah.
Oh, we walk.
That's wonderful.
So many places, so often. But, we got to get out and get a vehicle. We have the same guy we call to go shopping locally. In fact, if he's in the country, they have to go back to the country all the time for ceremonies. The place they're originally from. If he's there for example, I'll wait. I'll wait and do it another day. I walked to the hospital, which is like going to the doctor. All the doctors are there. That's 20 minutes. And it's the newest one in Bali. It's very, very good, very modern.
I'm impressed by that. Just the walking itself keeps you healthy, probably.
Oh, I've got to. It's my number one discipline. Zazen is number two.
All right. I hear you. That's very impressive. Yeah. I who still love to drive, because when I drive, I don't feel old, I got all that horsepower under me. But I admit, I even drive across country still,
My God.
Now, you remember that I go to Florida every winter, so don't come then to, you wouldn't be able to drop by. But you must think a little, you used to live up in the beautiful hills in Sonoma, didn't you? Did I make that up?
Lived on where Crane Canyon
Right.
meets right at the very top of Crane Canyon Road, where it meets Farmer. Is that Farmers? God, I can't
I
remember.
think
No,
it may
Grange
be
Road.
Sonoma Mountain.
Grange Road.
Sonoma
No,
Mountain, or
no,
Bennett Valley, or one of those.
it's next to Sonoma Mountain, where Bill Kwong is. Grange Road and Crane Canyon Road, at the very top there, John Tarrant has sort of an estate, and I lived there for like 8 years. It was fantastic.
Right. I drive by there all the time. I love that Crane Canyon Drive. I just had a visitor from Florida, and I drove her that drive, and she kept saying, "Can I take a picture? Can I take a picture?" You know? I said, "No, we've got a car on our tail." You know?
Wow, that's funny.
But it is beautiful up there still.
Yeah.
And blessedly, we've had all that rain, which was helped a lot. So, but right now the air is smoky. We do have a smoke alert from some Oregon fire.
Yeah.
So I can't claim it's paradise. You stay right on your island. You got it made, man. I'm glad. As long as climate change don't get you.
It will. It will, but I'll tell you, it sure hadn't yet.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I try to touch on climate change with everybody. And one thing I end up saying a lot is that what I've observed is that climate change is affecting from the poles. The poles are having extreme, and have been for a long time, extreme change. But you get down, and I hear Southeast Asia is having a lot of trouble, but not here. Not here, but it will.
Florida, the seas, the ocean is 100 degrees. That's pretty scary.
Oh, no,
I hope it's...
Yeah, that's too hot. That's too hot. 80 is swimming pool temperature.
82 is when I'm willing to go in, but 100 I'm scared of.
Yeah, 82 is nice. No, well, it's nice here. But look, I've talked to people here. I've been in poetry slams. I've been to a number of poetry slams, and I won one of them. I don't like competitive poetry, but anyway. But that was with a sexy. I just recited a song I'd written for Katrinka's birthday that was like really sexy, and then it ends.
And they loved it, of course.
Yeah. Oh, everybody freaked out, but especially when I ended it by saying, "For my wife Katrinka's 70th birthday." I knew it. I knew up to that point they thought I had a young lover or something.
Yep, I bet. Right, that's cute. But how does this connect with climate change?
Well, after that, I started just.
You see, I go to poetry slams. Yeah.
After that, I only did poems about pollution and climate change. And one thing I pointed out, it's just going to become uninhabitable here if things continue without changing.
Everybody will have to leave. You mean?
Well, I'm afraid that would be a luxury that most people can't afford.
Yeah.
That's happening all over the world right now. There's more and more death and suffering because of that. But hey, on a brighter note, I Googled J.J. Wilson in quotes and Virginia Woolf in quotes. That means it won't be picking up random Virginias and random.
Yeah.
And I got 359 responses.
Good God. Yeah, that's more or less what my friends, the curator here said. Shocking. Well, they're even more than that, I tell you, because right now, we just finished someone else did the work, and I got to just write a piece for it. The 100th issue of the newsletter that we started called the Virginia Woolf Miscellany, 100 issues, my God. And everybody's acting like it's, history incarnate or something. And I kept saying, do we need to continue it? I kept saying, you've got blogs, you've got blurbs, you've got all these other sources on the internet. Why do you need this old-fashioned Virginia Woolf miscellany? And they acted like I was, I don't know, denying the Virgin Mary or something. I mean, they want it to continue.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And I say, well, what does it serve? I know what it did in the past, and I see what it's doing in the present, but I have no view of what it's going to do in the future. And they say, well, wait and see, JJ. I think I can't. I'm 87 years old. Can't wait and see,
That's funny.
People are terrible at thinking toward the future. People. Some of the people I work with are so, they're sort of nostalgic, and they're in the present moment. But the future is, and maybe that's because of climate change. They don't dare think.
Yeah, I know. People are. I found it's really changed. People are well aware of it. Just a broad spectrum of people. Let me ask you something about Virginia Woolf. What's her appeal? Why is all right? What's her appeal? What is it that she wrote?
Why do people need to read Virginia Woolf? Well, mind you, this is going to sound like I'm skirting the answer, but I'm not. I just need to complicate it. I know people who can't read her novels because they're too interior, too nature, or all kind of reasons they can't read them, and they can read her essays and just love her nonfiction. They get that. She wrote in a lot of different genres, and her writing in essays was not as experimental as her novels, and so she's reachable on a lot of levels. And but for me, what drew me, because honestly, I don't speak for the whole world here. Virginia Woolf is like Shakespeare. She's different. People get different things from her. What they need, they find there. And Louise de Salvo found all about sexual abuse there. She could read that into every line. Other people read other things. For me, it was as if she helped me see, reading her novels helped me see the way I used to see as a child, with that directness and intensity. And I cherished that so much. So that's what got me hooked. Does that satisfy a little bit of your inkling? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And people can look into it further if they want. Well. I see. This is for publication, you mean? Good Lord. Well, I would have prepared a more sensible statement if I thought about it. It's not publication. No. Don't worry about it. It's conversation.
Conversation. I love it. We're starting at the sitting room round tables with just 6 people and a host to use the resources here at the sitting room. And one of the round tables is called Savoring Virginia Woolf. And by the way, I'm not part of it because my voice would weigh too heavy. People who've read enough Woolf to be interested, it's not introductory. And each person is going to take a novel they like and then look right on the shelves, right there where they can reach, right where the round table is. They can reach an archive file on that novel that has all kind of weird, wonderful things in it. They can read critics on that novel, and they can read Virginia Woolf's diaries and letters that she wrote while she was writing that novel, in which isn't that going to be fun?
Wow. That's amazing.
And then they then they'll share, what they learned with one another. Well, I didn't know that To the Lighthouse really, blah, blah, blah. So into the Lighthouse, which is kind of a tourist trap and not my favorite Woolf novel, she has her mother, the mother in it, Mrs. Ramsey, dies in parentheses. Mrs. Ramsey died last night, period. Do you know how many chapters it takes in Victorian novels to kill a mother? 3 chapters at least. So she's partly, what's fun about it is that she's pulling the carpet out from all the novels that have been written before. She's making fun of them. She's doing them one better.
Wow.
And I love that. That was revolutionary for me because I'd read all those Victorians, and she thought they were materialists and not interested in the things she was interested in. So the book that's now getting there are 2 books of hers that are getting a huge amount of attention. One of them is Mrs. Dalloway, and it's partly because it's out of copy right now, and it's partly because it's been a version of it has been written called The Hours by a novelist called Michael Cunningham. And it has been, believe it or not, his novel, but which depends on Virginia Woolf's novel and quotes it a lot, has become an opera sung at the Metropolitan Opera by wonderful singers, Renee Fleming, for one, for instance. And so it's like, and partly it's because they say that people read it as an account of the pandemic, the flu that came after World War I that killed so many people, was seen as analogous to the COVID epidemic. And so everybody just reading the hell out of that book, which is great. Then Orlando has taken off because it was a wonderful spoof on gender, among other things. And everyone now is so into gender fluidity and, all that they just read Orlando like it was holy text. And I have to keep saying to people, actually, it's a joke, She's being funny. The British humor has its own little hyperbolic, jokey, snarky way. And young people now, American young people anyway, don't get it.
That's very interesting what you had to say about that.
Well, you would love Orlando, David, because you would get the jokes. It's a joke on literary history. It's a joke on Vita Sackville West's family history. It just takes and it just has the best time and ends with 3 dots, right?
That's funny. That's funny. That's funny.
So try to read Orlando and see if it doesn't work for you.
All right. I'll tell Katrinka.
Yes.
Because sometimes we read to each other, that
would be fun to read aloud. That would be great.
Yeah.
The Waves. We have read The Waves aloud in an all-night session. It was really fun, but that's pretty far out. You got to really be a Woolf addict to do that, I think.
Yeah.
But try Orlando for size, and then let's talk again after you've tried it, okay?
Okay. JJ, it's really been delightful talking with you. I really appreciate it. That is good.
Don't forget that Cuban suitcase story.
That's good. That is really good. Well, that is smart.
By the way, Neil's her husband, who said they've been married 7 years, and he said she was speaking in public just recently, and she quoted Virginia Woolf, and he didn't even know she'd ever read Virginia Woolf. And there she is in Nicaragua quoting Virginia Woolf. So there must be something. you know what it is room of one's own. That's what everyone quotes. And Adrian Rich has made great fun of it, and made a good critique of it. It's not my favorite at all, but it's what everybody will mention if you mention Virginia Woolf. So that and the Edward Albee play.
I saw that in New York with my mother and sister.
It was a hell of a play, but there's a lovely letter that Albee wrote to Leonard, asking. It was after Virginia Woolf's death, asking his permission to use Virginia Woolf's name. And Leonard wrote a beautiful letter back saying, Virginia and I always stood against any kind of censorship, and we're not going to start now.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah.
And then he went to see it with a friend of his who's an actress, a famous Ibsen actress, actually. And he loved it. He saw the play in London, and he wrote Edward Albee a letter about it. And Ed wrote him back saying, after I got your letter, I had to go out and walk around the block 3 times. It's the kind of letter every writer wants to get, and he was so excited. So that was a very nice transaction. All around. Yeah, it wasn't. But some of the other uses of the room of one's own are right. There's a hotel in Napa that's been advertising. Want a room of your own? Well, come to our hotel. And I think Virginia Woolf would have been a little horrified by that.
Well, yeah.
So it's become a trope. It's said all the time, and I can't quite figure out why, but it is. It's what she's. Why we would be remembered by the thing that we might the most regret is one of the unfortunate things about celebrity and notoriety, I suppose. So keep your head down. Don't let that happen to you, David.
Oh, well, I sort of agree, though, also with her and her husband's the policy of letting anybody do what they want. It's It doesn't matter. Don't stop them. What was it? Edward, what's his name? William Irwin Thompson. Bill Thompson wrote in At the Edge of History. He said, history, he started talking about how it gets things confused, that there were 2 Quetzalcoatl's in Mexico that were 1,000 years apart, and they're confused. He said, someday St. Patrick of Ireland and Pat Buchanan will be mixed up together.
Well, I even heard that St. Patrick accused of starting the violation of nature by humans by running out the snakes. That was a first sign that we were headed to climate change because of our impact on nature, our trying to make things safe and everything. We screwed everything up. So Anyway, dear, I'm hanging up now because I got to go to the bathroom. So that's different than going to see the moon, but the moon is out again tonight. So I am going to go have a look.
I'll go take a look at the moon too, and I'll wave hi to you when I do.
Thank you, dear. I love sharing a moon with you, and it's time talking. Thank you for...
Yeah, you take care. So thanks a lot, J.J. Wilson. Oh, hey. Sorry, right when we were saying goodbye, we lost a good contact there. We were sort of losing her feed up into the stratosphere and back down here to Earth. There are a few places here or there. I fix it in a couple of places, but you might have noticed some other. Anyway, like if you notice something where it just sort of abruptly goes from one thing to another, that's probably where there was, it got to be where I couldn't understand what she was saying. It wouldn't go on long. Anyway, no matter. There was plenty of good stuff there. So thanks a lot, JJ. Look forward to hearing more. I'd love to see you. I'd love to visit you at that lovely place in Sonoma County. So until next time, this is DC, Poobah of Cuke Archives and Cuke Audio. Coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita, guest Doggett Boombita, and a new arrival, a very lovely, sort of fluffy white and black cat named Manis, which means sweet in Indonesian. A woman is dying, and that's why we're getting it. And her husband needed somebody to take care of it, and I wouldn't have done it. I'm hard-hearted, but Katrinka, it's friends and stuff, so she accepted it. And the guy who's from Australia, he called the cat Manis. Sort of, but probably not Manis. That sounds sort of Texan. But, Manis rather than Manis. Anyway, right now, she's getting acclimated. Like Bondi. Boom Boo, the little toy poodle, there's no problem with the two of them. Boom Boo just doesn't pay attention to her. And she doesn't pay attention. She can tell Boom Boo's nothing to worry about. But she's hiding under the sofa in the bedroom. We're keeping the bedroom closed because Bondi will just go in and, she'll get under the sofa and just look at her and growl a little and bark. Just bug her, Bondi thinks cats are to chase and play with. But she got very close with our prior cat, Coochie. And may she rest in peace. And they used to love to play. They had a very close relationship. They go chasing each other around, and it was great. But, they're doing all right now. We're locking Bondi out of the bedroom, and we're not letting Manis out either because a new cat goes to a place. You want to keep it inside for a few days. Let it know there's food and people that are nice. So anyway, that's what's happening. So we're all wishing you and everyone a grand awakening.